You know, I had real high hopes for the Canon R7. I mean, super high hopes. And this is the camera that's shooting me right now. And, you know, you can see how it looks. The lens that I'm using is a 17 to 55 f2.8 EFS lens. And I'm using one of the Canon adapters to do that. But I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my experience and just the things that I wish I had known before I even bought this camera. So number one, and this is kind of a big one for me anyway. When you hit record on this camera, and I bought this, and I'm really talking to people that are doing video mainly with this camera, not the people that are using it for still photography, because I know you guys love it for still photography. But when it comes to video, as soon as you hit record on this camera, all of your information disappears off the screen. At least all of the pertinent information that you need about the video. Are you shooting in 4K? Are you shooting in 60 frames, 24 frames, 30 frames per second? What color profile are you shooting with? And just all that basic stuff that should stay on the screen just disappears. And you can't see it. The only thing you can see is your sound meter. So you can see your metering, your audio metering. But that's really all you have. You lose a lot of information. And you're saying, well, what's the big deal with that? You know what you're shooting in. You hit record, you hit record, you knew what you were shooting in. When you're shooting fast pace, and I usually use these cameras for weddings, sometimes I'm shooting in 60 frames per second. Sometimes I'm shooting 24 frames per second if I'm indoors and I need more light and I need to slow down my shutter. Sometimes I'm shooting in 120 frames per second because the bride and the groom are doing a dance outside and I want to get it in slow motion. But then you get inside. Things happen fast. Now it's time to go shoot the ceremony or something. Or it's time to go shoot the reception. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just hit record. What mode was I in? I don't know because I can't see it on the screen anymore. It doesn't show me if I'm in 4K. It doesn't show me if I'm in 24 frames per second. I don't know. So then I have to stop recording to check what I'm in. It kind of slows you down. Now, going a step further, one thing that the Sony a6600 has, where is it? And this is not a video about the a6600, but it's just the camera that I've been using. So I was just kind of used to a lot of the functionality of this camera. It has a S&Q mode on the dial. And what S&Q is basically your high-speed shooting. So just by flicking the dial, you're automatically in 120 frames per second. That's a really nice feature. And you're saying, well, you can do that with the Canon because it has custom settings. It's not the same. Custom settings on the Canon and even on the Sony, if you use their custom settings, it's not just saving your frame rate and your recording mode. It's also saving your white balance. It's saving your audio levels. You know, it saves your picture profile. All that stuff is saved in there. Fine. But when I want to go to high-speed shooting, I don't want the white balance to change. I don't want my ISO to change. I don't want my aperture to change. But when you use the custom setting, all that stuff is going to change to whatever you registered at the time that you saved that setting, instead of just using what you already have in the camera at that moment. So that's something the Sony can do very well. You switch to S&Q, the ISO stays the same, the aperture stays the same, white balance stays the same, picture profile stays the same. The only thing that changes is your shutter speed and your frame rate. And that's all I want to change. Canon can't do that, unfortunately. Everybody said that not having RFS lenses would not be a big deal because there's so many EF and EFS lenses. So who cares about the RF lenses? I care. Because when you have the RFS lenses, it works better for image stabilization when it comes to video. And here's one more problem. When you plug in an external monitor, your LCD on the camera turns off. So now you don't have access to the touchscreen. So if you need to change some settings like maybe your volume or on your headphones or for your microphone, or more importantly, you want to tap something on the screen to focus, you can't do that anymore. So there's that. There's no lenses, no RFS lenses. And you say, oh, well, just buy RF instead of RFS. Well, when you buy RFS, especially zoom lenses, when you're talking about fast zoom lenses, f2.8, f2 lenses and all that, you're talking about thousands of dollars. Where if they made an RFS lens, it would be much cheaper because they're smaller, but they don't have any. So where are the RFS zoom lenses that are fast and professional? They just don't have any yet. And that's just like a really, really bad thing for Canon, because now you got Sony with the FX30 and they have a ton of lens options and just a way better camera than you have. People who are going to shoot APS-C film are probably going to get that camera and not even look at the R7 anymore. So, I mean, you really got to step up and make some better lenses, especially because Sony has power zoom lenses too, which to me are just way better than using these mechanical lenses when you're shooting video. And you're shooting something live and you're sitting there wrapping the lens left and right, shaking your image. That's really crappy. It's so much nicer to have a power zoom lens. So I think Canon's got to catch up with that type of stuff. Also, the leveler. The leveler's there before you start recording, but if you hit info while you're recording, it disappears. You can't access it anymore. I guess they figure you get a level of the camera, hit record, and that's it. But sometimes, again, like when you're shooting fast-paced things, sometimes you hit record and you didn't do all that leveling stuff beforehand because you didn't have the time. Or I'm on a monopod, and the monopod's not perfectly level. I need that leveler function to still be there, and it's just not there. Kind of annoying. The other thing I want to show is the fact that you can punch in to get your focus. See here, you hit the little punch in button, and then you can go ahead and get your focus and make sure you're in good focus, and then you can punch back out. But when you hit record, and right now I'm in manual focus, even though you really couldn't tell it because that little thing that says MF or AF disappears off the screen, so you really don't know if you're in manual focus, right? You just gotta feel around for the buttons and stuff on the camera. But if you want to zoom in now, you don't have that option. See, if I hit info, it's not there anymore. And if I hit this button right here to zoom in, it doesn't work. Now, there's some other cool focusing tools on the R7, don't get me wrong, because you still have peaking, which helps you out. And they have this little focusing guide. So it's a little box. And as you focus on your subject, you put the box on whatever you're trying to focus on. As you get it right, it puts like a little arrow and it joins the arrow together. And the box turns green to let you know you're in focus. And here's another thing that I find to be really annoying. And I guess this is true of how Canon always does custom white balance in these mirrorless cameras. Because I think my M50 used to do the same thing. So if I wanted to do a manual white balance, if I came in here and the Q menu and I come over to the white balance, right now I have it on a custom white balance setting. So let's just say I had it on flash. Come to custom, you notice you don't have an option to set the custom. Like that doesn't exist. You can't do it that way. So the fastest way to do it, okay, and there's multiple ways to do it. One way you can go through the menu, and I guess, you know what, let's show you that one. So you can come into the menu, you come into the camera icon, go to page, maybe it's 2, I think. Or is it 3? It's 3. You come into custom white balance, but actually before that, you have to go back. You would need to go into your picture mode if you're doing it this way. Then you need to take a picture. So let's just take a quick picture. You know, it's not really in focus well, but let's try to focus it a little bit better. There we go. So we take a picture of something white. And for whatever reason, it's not taking a picture. Oh, because my battery's about to die. I think that's why it's not taking it. Okay, so you take your picture. My battery's gonna die soon, so this might not work. You come in your custom white balance. Now you go to that picture, you hit set, use white balance data from this image, okay. And now you have your custom white balance set. So you go back to video, come into the queue, you go to your custom white balance, and it's using that picture basically. So that is your custom white balance. Another way to do it, which is a little faster, you come into the picture mode, you go to queue, you go to the custom white balance again, but this time in the picture mode, you have the option to shoot to set white balance. So you can click on that. Now you do the same thing. You can now go in, take your picture of whatever's white or gray. And I think it's not working because, okay, it wasn't in focus. And now it's going to use that picture to do your white balance. So you notice everything is blue instead of purple. So that's another way to do it. But then you got to go back into your video. And then you got to go back here. And you got to select that custom white balance. Make sure that's selected. It's just a lot of steps. they need to add that thing that you could do in pictures to the video section, that's all. So I really don't wind up using it much. I just go to Kelvin and just dial in whatever Kelvin number I want and just hope I'm right. So that's just some of the things I wish I knew about the R7 before I bought it. Some of those things I mentioned could easily be fixed in firmware. And if you want to watch a video about image stabilization in the Canon R7 and how it performs for video, you might want to watch this.